Hello Aquarius friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my Aquarius May 2021 Astrology Must-Knows Horoscope Report. We're going to cover what are the things to celebrate for Aquarius this month, and there are a ton. We're also going to talk about the things to watch out for, just a few things to a much lesser degree than the things to celebrate. We're also going to talk about how to make lemonade and other strategies just to create your highest outcomes this month and in general, specific for you. And we're going to talk about understanding the eclipses and eclipse seasons, because we are hot and heavy into eclipse season now, and it is very, very intense when this happens. We'll go into the specifics of what you can expect and what eclipse cycles are like, and when we had this last eclipse cycle, and understanding the Gemini and Sagittarius eclipses. And at the end of the video, we will go into the specific areas of life that will be affected by this eclipse, the May eclipse. So we've got a lot to cover. I'll also be giving you extra resources to understand where the eclipse is hitting you. I'll talk about that at the end as well. So now you have the structure, so let's get going. The first thing I want to talk about are the things to celebrate. And like I said, there are lots. Even though it's true that we've got the sun moving through Taurus for a good bit of the month, and we have Venus and Mercury lingering a bit in Taurus in the early part of the month, which we will talk about in the what to watch out for segment. The Gemini energies are really dominating this month, and even right from the beginning, because as Mercury and Gemini as Mercury and Venus get into Gemini early in the month, these start making the most favored aspect in all of astrology, the trine for Aquarius. So whenever there's an air festival, this is always something to celebrate for you. So that means that the stars are speaking your language. The way that we can look at the way that elements interact with one another, they're like languages. So the language of air is something that you speak. It's on the mental plane. It's great for strategy. It's great for thinking things out and dreaming and planning and coordinating and linking things together, making important connections. And so you're going to have lots of energy that will support that, plus that beautiful angle that will give you lots of blessings. Okay, so the next thing is that we have the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle, and we will go into much more of this later. But right now, under the list for things to celebrate, these eclipses in May and June are in wonderful aspects for you, for your placement, whether you're watching for your Aquarius rising or moon, or if you're watching for your sun, or if you have another Aquarius placement that you watch for. This is going to be, it's increased in odds that this is going to be fantastic for you, because when the eclipses are making nice angles for us, it tends to be super positive. Now, that's not going to say, of course, we don't know what's going to happen or what the universe has to bring you on your track for your highest expression, but we can say at least that the eclipses are going to be in favorable angles for your Aquarius placement, and that is true. Something else that is exciting and worthy of celebration for Aquarius right now is that your home sector is beautifully lit. So if you've been needing a home, if you've been homeless or having trouble because of the COVID situations, or if you've been wanting to move, if you're wanting to upgrade, if you're wanting to renovate your house, if you have a real estate matter that has to be resolved, there is a ton of energy around that at this time. Also, if you have a family matter that has to be addressed, there's a ton of energy around that at this time. There's also a lot of wonderful energy for creativity for you at this time, and that's creative like from the perspective of creative projects, or it's creative from the perspective of like a baby and anything having to do with your children. That aspect of your life, if you're a parent or want to be, is beautifully lit up at this time. Also, I call this energy of this particular part of the chart that's lit up for you the bucket list house, because this particular field of experience also has to do with just doing the fun things like hobbies and things that you've really wanted to do. There's a chance that some of those can really be activated at this time. This is also the house of true love. Who doesn't love to have their true love house activated, right? Sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince or princess, right? But there could be a lot of activity in that sector, and you could make great headway towards finding the person of your dreams, and that person could come in at this time. There's a lot of strong energy around that for you. So as I said, there's a lot to celebrate. We've got just a couple of things to watch out for. The first thing has to do with the planets in Taurus. And as I alluded to earlier, Taurus doesn't make a great aspect for Aquarius placements, and you'll feel that. There's some awkwardness, there's some annoyance, that will have started, early or I said, well, at the end of April more, this really got going, and you'll be feeling that especially towards the beginning of May. But what is even great about that, even though it's a what to watch out for, is that it can help you to bring your strategies into implementation. And this is part of why it rubs you a little bit the wrong way, is because Aquarius energies are fantastic strategists. And this, I always think about this. I have a daily reminder of this because my daughter is actually an Aquarius, and she's still in the single digits. But boy, is she ever a strategist. She has already mapped out everything before anyone else even knows what's going on, and she has the ideas of exactly what has to be done. And she doesn't have any problem delegating. That's something else that a lot of Aquarius energies are really great at. And if you haven't activated the capacity to delegate, it's latent within you, and maybe now is a good time to do that. You can make your life so much easier if you really strengthen those muscles that you have as an Aquarius to see what has to be done and to be able to pull people together for a common cause, or whatever the goal is to make it happen. So one time my mom was renovating a unit that she has, and it was a mess. So everything was just torn up, but there were certain things that she had accomplished, and she brought us in to see. And so my daughter, who was very little at the time, pointed around and said, "You have to clean up this mess." Anyway, so it's just a natural thing for Aquarius to be able to see what has to be done and to be able to figure out the things that have to come together in order to make that happen. So when the planets get into Taurus, there's this rubbing of, okay, here's the idea, here's the strategy, and now things have to be implemented. And that might require you to do certain things that you don't particularly want to do, or that you might have to go through the awkwardness of finding the perfect person to implement those things. But it's still going to have a positive outcome in the way that you're getting closer to the actual implementation of the idea or the dream. But there's just a little bit of awkwardness. That's how I see it with the combination of these planets for you, which hopefully will be very productive. Now, speaking of productivity, that's something else we have to watch out for. The second half of May is very different than the first half of May in the way that Mercury retrograde starts to seep in around May 16th and we're fully entrenched in the retrograde energies the second half of May, all of June, and the just very early part of July. So what that means is that plans and other things that were set, agreements, connections, things that seemed set, tend to get called into question, or they tend to outright change. Sometimes the things that get called into question wind up working out anyway, but it's through this kind of testing process. So the second half of May is going to bring a lot of tests to the work that you've already done, or the things that were already intact, relationships, agreements, connections, things you were trying to do. And you might not have that certainty that you had in the previous months. The middle of March into the middle of May is really a golden period in 2021 for more certainty, more hope, more figuring everything out, getting things implemented, forward movement, accomplishment. And now we're kind of in the phase where we're reconsidering the things that we did. You might notice that you launched some things in the mid-March through mid-May timeframe, and now's the time for editing them or doing, making tweaks to them. And this is perfect for that. It kind of pulls you out of that launch and pushing out mode into things closer to you, closer in your environment, and things that have to be dealt with. So this doesn't have to be a bad thing. And in fact, for Aquarius, this can actually be a really magnificent thing because the Mercury retrograde is in Gemini, the air sign. We talked about this in the Yay celebration list for Aquarius. And this is another thing to celebrate, actually, even though it's also a thing to watch out for. Because as things get called into question and you pull backwards and inwards, it's still making a nice angle for your placement. And so all of you could have the possibility to experience news, things coming back from the past, blessings from the past that are, joyful, people coming back into your life, or projects coming back into your life, or a hobby or something else coming back into your life that can bring you great joy. All of you can experience that. And if you have any Aquarius degrees that are between 16 and 24 degrees, so that's basically like February 6th through February 14th-ish birthdays, or if whatever your other Aquarius placements are between 16 and 24 degrees, you all have the chance for kisses in triplicate, because as Mercury passes through those degrees, then retrogrades back over those degrees, then it will pass forward again into June in those degrees, then you will have that happen 3 times. Okay, so just kind of know that flexibility as the second half of the month wears on, flexibility, keeping plans light, going with the flow is better indicated than trying to like stand firm in any certain way and try to do things a certain way. The time for perseverance and kind of staying a little bit more focused and directed is in the second half of the month. And then things, as the Gemini energies loosen up, things get much more free and open. And the more you can roll with that, the more fun you can have and the more ease you can have. Okay, so now let's talk about, okay, we've moved now to the eclipses. The reason why I focus so much on eclipses during eclipse time is because they bring radical change, crazy trajectory shifts where you're going in one direction, then all of a sudden, almost overnight, you're heading in a completely different direction, dramatic endings, exciting new beginnings, clearing up of karma in a major way where you feel like, wow, something has occurred and now certain patterns are just behind you, and brand new ways of being open up. It's a very exciting time. It can also be a very stressful time, and some of the changes that come are not welcome. Some of the changes that come are things that you've been trying to manifest for sometimes your whole life. And so it's just a very, very powerful time of extreme energies. The principle in physics that talks about matter never being created nor destroyed, that it simply changes form, is very evident at eclipse time. And we can see it happening in some common things, like for instance, a grandparent passes away and a grandchild is born, or something notable goes on like that type of thing. Somebody retires, but then they start their post-retirement new project, and it's like the energy of what is removed doesn't leave. It just changes into this other form in this brilliant new beginning. And so you will either be a person who is having that happen in this, especially May, June time frame, or you'll be a person who's watching people around you have crazy things going on, and in some cases holding space for them, because it can be, even positive changes can be pretty stressful or a lot to take in as you're going through a major transition. And a lot of times, if you're not the person going through that change, you're holding space for the other person, meaning you're there for them, you're holding their hand through it, or you're assisting them in some way. You can usually tell if you're going to be the person who's going through the changes or the person holding the space by the degree to which the sign and degree of the eclipse hits your personal planets. But since we have so many personal planets, we can't do that justice in general readings, but we can talk about some of that, which I tend to do, in the horoscopes. But some people go through both of it, where they're holding space for other people who are going through a lot, and they themselves are going through a lot of change. Okay, so those are some must knows. Now, just to give you a little perspective about this particular eclipse cycle, the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle. The last time we had this eclipse cycle was March 2011 through August 2012. And now it started again on May 2020 through January 2022. So it doesn't mean that everything that happened between March 2011 and August 2012 will occur again. It means that the things that occurred in that time that were related to the signs or houses that were accented for you are going to be themes that come up again. If something bad happened then, it doesn't mean something bad will happen now. It's just the areas of life that are activated, which of course I'm talking more about in, this May and June report to tell you what areas of life will be active for you from the perspective of your sun or rising or whatever you're watching for. But in general, you can think back to that time and then notice what similar themes started to come up again around May of 2020 that have been going on. Now, the other must know about eclipses is it's like an eclipse cycle has several periods of time where there is the eclipse season, where everything gets heated up and right in the forefront, and then it kind of fades into the backdrop. And then the eclipse season happens again every 6 months. This goes on. and then it heats up, and then it kind of fades in the backdrop. So you'll also have noticed that whatever themes have come up for you, we had things that came up May, June, July of 2020. It's kind of like a pot boiling. The eclipses in the astrological perspective are not like they are in the astronomical perspective. From the astronomical perspective, they happen at that time and they're done. From the astrological perspective, there's this cycle that's working in the backdrop, and it's working on areas of your life, and it's active, and then it fades in the backdrop and it's active. Okay, so this is how I like to see this, is that in May of last year of 2020, we had the heat go up. And then in June and July, it was like a rapid boil. And then you took the heat off, and then it kind of like faded out into the backdrop. And then in November and December of 2020, the heat was on again. But then, in January and then into February, March, April, we're like kind of down where the heat is off. Now, towards the end of April, the heat started coming on again of this 2021, and then May and June we're at a full boil again with the eclipses. Then into July it sort of starts to fade back down with the heat taken off into the backdrop, and then towards the end of the year we'll have our final Gemini Sagittarius heat up and then fade out into January 2022 rather, and it will be done, and we'll be on to the next cycle. Okay, so in general, anything involving cars, transportation, including, guarding yourself while you're driving. You have to be extra careful during Gemini and Sagittarius eclipse cycles, because it tends to highlight transportation. And so that can bring, accidents or things with cars or vehicles or walking or your mobility. You don't have to be afraid. It's just to become more aware. So anything having to do with how we share information and how we take in information and how we share it. Education, we can see since last year, we thought that it was COVID that did this, right? But it was really a part of an astrological cycle that was bringing the topic of education and how we are getting educated into the forefront. So now we have new breakthroughs and new storylines with how we're getting educated, kids and adults. Also, how we're commuting or not commuting to work. So you can see as of, the spring of 2020, the fall for those of you down under, and now in the spring of 2021, in the fall for those of you down under, where we're back in this, okay, what are we going to do with the kids in school? Who's going to wind up staying home? What are we doing with work? People are working from home. All of this is very much related to this eclipse cycle. It's more related to this eclipse cycle than it is COVID. COVID is part of the storyline, but COVID is also astrological. And if you want more information about that, search for Annie Botticelli coronavirus and watch my very in-depth video talking about how astrological cycles are really at the source of the things that we think are related to COVID. COVID is part of the astrology, not the cause of everything that's going on. So in any case, we will see things involving international topics. Immigration has been a very hot topic since last year, especially. And we're seeing the storylines of that unfold. Anything having to do with relationships with different countries and our international business. All of that is very much related to the eclipse cycle of the Sagittarius Gemini. So all signs will be seeing those storylines heating up into the forefront. Something else that is a major must know about eclipse time and eclipses in general is that the eclipse cycle matches the North and South node transit. So for those of you who know about North and South nodes, maybe you didn't know that there was a direct relationship between the eclipse cycle and the North and South nodes. They're both running along the ecliptic. And the ecliptic is a very important area of focus in astrology, because this has to do with your karma and your dharma. So the difficult patterns that you brought in, whether it was through your own soul's, behaviors and journey, or whether it was through ancestral things that have gone on in your particular DNA, or whether it's the human consciousness that's undergoing evolution, all of those karmic pieces are represented in the South Node energies. And then the North Node energies speak to our highest expression in this lifetime, our highest evolution, our dharma, what we came here to do. So eclipse time always is very rich with opportunities to clear karma, clear old patterns, clear programming that's not working, and set up new wiring, solidify the trace of a suggestion that's sitting there waiting to be actualized in the form of our highest destiny, taking steps into making those pathways be solid and more of your norm. So it's very much a time where you have opportunities to step into your highest expression in major ways and let go of major old patterns and become revitalized and have your life just opened up in ways that you've only dreamed of. So it's a very exciting time. I mean, what is there in the mind of the seeker that could be more important than stepping into your highest destiny and your highest expression this lifetime, right? And so the eclipses bring us on there, fate points, fate meetings, fate, endings, divine, destined, or fated endings, fated beginnings, things that have that sense of like, wow, this is really fated here. This is really destined. You'll feel that the energy of synchronicity moving you in these magical, ways that you can't, you have to acknowledge that, wow, obviously there's something else at work here. It's a very magical time. And it's a very intense time. And your nervous system will be under duress, and you'll probably need more sleep, but it may be harder to sleep, and you might need more of your nervous system support and your adrenal support. And those are ways that you can really maximize this time, because the better rested you are and the more your body has the nutrition that it needs, the easier it is for you to manage what's going on. Sometimes someone will say, well, what do these supplements and these things you talk about have to do with astrology? And in my mind, they have everything to do with astrology, because if you're trying to have the best possible experience, and you know that there are intense times coming, how you experience those intense times is going to be affected tremendously by the state of your adrenals and the state of the rest of your whole nervous system and your other systems. So if they are working well and well supported, then as the stresses come, it's easier for you to step into your superhero self and have an easier experience of the challenges that come. And the challenges, like I said, could be super positive, but still challenges just the same. Like, let's say someone buys their, dream house, and that certainly could happen now. Well, the leaving of the old house, the actual move, the logistics, there's stress involved even in the best of changes. And those are the types of things that are going to be occurring in this May-June timeframe in a very big way. Okay, so now you have a very solid understanding of the eclipse cycles, how that tends to work, what comes up, the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse cycle. And now I want to talk in more detail about some specifics of the degrees and also the areas of the Aquarius chart that are going to be affected. So we talked some about the Gemini Sagittarius manifestations, and those are for all signs, but they are also for you. So just because they're for all signs doesn't minimize that the things that we discussed there might come up in a big and very exciting way, especially because it's in that nice angle for you. So like I said, the blessings because of this nice angle can come for all Aquarius placements, but those of you closest to 6 degrees are likely to see the most blessings. And that is basically January born. Okay, so the 27th, 28th, 29th, the days around there even more so, but all January born up until the first couple of days of February, you have the chance to have even more blessings from this eclipse because of the direct angle that it's going to make with that 6 degree. It's a lunar eclipse on May 26th at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, for early degree placements, those of you who are in the January born, early February, there's a chance that this is going to hit in your house of Aquarius, okay? So meaning new friendships, new humanitarian projects, internet projects, and there's a ton more things that this can have for you, okay? In order to get more details about that, I have a whole separate video. So look for Aquarius or eclipses in Aquarius, Annie Botticelli eclipses in Aquarius. And those of you in the January, early February time frame, or those of you who are 0 to 11 or so degrees, you'll want to watch that video, okay? Now, all Aquariuses also watch my eclipses in Sagittarius video. So Annie Botticelli eclipses in Sagittarius. And then all Aquarius also watch my eclipses in Gemini, because even though that Gemini eclipse isn't until June, and I will talk about where that's going to hit you in the June report, you will be feeling those effects because, as I talked about, 4 to 6 weeks before the actual eclipse season gets roaring, and so you're simultaneously feeling the Sagittarius eclipse and the Gemini eclipse in the month of May. So you'll want to watch Eclipses for Gemini, Annie Botticelli video. Now, there's one more video that I'm going to have all Aquariuses watch, and that is Eclipses in Capricorn, because even if you are in the early degree placement, like the January born, early February, and may see the eclipse in that 11th house, it's still on the line there because it's such an early degree that there is also a chance that you might see this eclipse energy manifest in your 10th house of work and career. The energies of home and work are going to be very pronounced for Aquariuses in this eclipse cycle. And you can see more about this when you look into this Eclipses in Capricorn video. So new employment, raises, recognition, new businesses, retiring, old businesses, what are you going to do with your time now, what you're supposed to be doing with your life if you're a person who doesn't need to work or you're retired, activating your Dharma section, like what you're here to do. Those kind of things are going to be very strong for all Aquarius placements at this time. If you would like even more information on how you can maximize the starry possibilities, click on the little arrow underneath the video that says more, and that little arrow click will reveal all the notes below the video. Most of the time that I spend working is spent doing free offerings, and you can see what all those are and get the links directly to them in the notes below the video. First thing to do is go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter. Not only will you get my happy scopes, a sneak peek into the highlights of all of the months of 2021. Right now, you can see all of that immediately, but you'll also get a more detailed overview of each month, 1 month early, the sweet and salty dates of the aspects, what you can expect from them, and a general write-up of the month ahead delivered into your inbox 1 month early. You also get a free sign-on bonus called Shine, which is my virtual 28-day coaching program. And this is very, very, very detailed, and it can really help support you in your conscious evolution and breaking out of old patterns. So you get all of that when you sign up at anniehelpsyou.com. You'll see it right on the front page. It'll say, "Hi, friend," and then it'll have space for your name and email address. The next thing to make sure to do is go to my school, lumelife.com, L-U-M-E life.com. It's Luminous Life Multiversity, and I've got free courses there, including one to help you ramp up your abundance called Unleash Your Money Magnet. You can also see my paid courses there, including my crazy comprehensive astrology program called Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery course. If you'd like to do astrology as part or all of your professional offering, or just become adept enough for your own process or to help other people, you will love, love, love this course, especially if you resonate with my work. And you can see that at lumelife.com, and plus the other courses there. Also, go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. That's my other beautiful website where I and a few amazing up-and-coming bloggers that I have selected to be part of this with me are giving you amazing offerings every month, and a lot of it is astrology kissed. So herbal teas for the signs and the sun's movement, hypnosis, healing frequencies for each sign. You'll love this site. It's called cozybysweetstarlight.com. Then also, don't forget about my books. I write books as well. I've got a book called Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. And this is a beautiful book of prayers and affirmations that you can use over a moon cycle or however you're drawn to use it. Then my very, very in-depth book called Planetology, How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe. And it does exactly that. So it's a very detailed, long, comprehensive book to help you align with the starry rhythms. And another very exciting thing that I want to share this month is it's the month of my boy, Seamus. We call him Seamus Blue Moon. It's his birthday in May, and he is having some offerings that are starting to come out. So you can see some work of his artwork in the link below. In the future, you will see him teaching courses at my school. He's working on a course now. So he's also a rune master, an amazing reader of runes. So you'll start to see more by him coming soon. And so this is his beautiful launch into the public. So you can check out some of his artwork in the link below in the More button. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.